Eddie Hearn has never been one to think small. Whether it's boxing, darts, or snooker, his approach has always been rooted in bold ideas, global expansion, and the power of star athletes to drive entire industries forward. Now, with his recent move into rugby through the signing of Henry Pollock, Hearn is already envisioning a future where the sport could break into new markets, including the rapidly growing sports hub of the Middle East, but in typical Hearn fashion, his vision isn't centered solely on the sport itself. Instead, it revolves around something he believes is far more powerful, individual star power. A bold claim, rugby in Saudi Arabia. Hearn recently suggested that he could instantly stage a major rugby event in Saudi Arabia if he wanted to. It's a striking claim, but one that carries weight given his track record. Over the past several years, Saudi Arabia has become a major destination for global sport. From boxing megafights to Formula E, tennis exhibitions, and high-profile entertainment events, the kingdom has invested heavily in attracting international audiences and showcasing itself as a global sports hub. Hearn has been at the forefront of that movement. His involvement in staging major boxing events in Saudi Arabia, including blockbuster fights featuring Anthony Joshua, has given him first-hand experience of the country's ambitions and capabilities. So when he says he could bring rugby there instantly, it's not just speculation, it's a reflection of his connections and influence. The Pollock factor, however. What makes Hearn's vision particularly interesting is his belief that rugby alone wouldn't be the primary attraction. Instead, he argues that Saudi Arabia, and markets like it, are more interested in personalities than sports. The center of that belief is Henry Pollock. The 21-year-old England and Northampton Saints player has quickly become one of the most talked about young talents in rugby. But for Hearn, it's not just Pollock's performances on the field that matter, it's his charisma, confidence, and ability to capture attention. Hearn has gone as far as to say that Pollock could single-handedly ignite rugby, elevating it to new levels of popularity and commercial success. In this context, the idea of hosting a rugby event in Saudi Arabia becomes less about the sport itself and more about building a spectacle around a marketable figure. Star power over sport. Hearn's philosophy is simple: people follow stars. He points to examples from other sports to support his argument. When snooker was introduced to Saudi Arabia, it wasn't the sport alone that drew interest, it was the presence of Ronnie O'Sullivan, one of the most recognizable figures in the game. Similarly, when darts events were staged in the region, the focus was on emerging superstar Luke Littler. In both cases, the athletes themselves became the centerpiece, with the sport acting as the platform. Hearn believes the same model could apply to rugby. If Pollock continues to grow his profile, build his social media presence, and deliver exciting performances, he could become the kind of figure capable of drawing global attention, regardless of where the event is held. Pollock, not rugby. Perhaps the most telling aspect of Hearn's comments is his assertion that Saudi Arabia would be more interested in bringing Pollock to the country than rugby as a whole. In his view, decision-makers in the region are driven by data, numbers, engagement metrics, and the ability to attract younger audiences. Pollock, with his growing digital footprint and eye-catching personality, fits that profile perfectly. Hearn imagines a scenario where a rugby event is built entirely around Pollock's presence, marketed as a must-see spectacle rather than a traditional sporting fixture. In such a model, the sport becomes secondary to the star, the bigger context. Rugby's global expansion. Hearn's comments come at a time when rugby is actively exploring new markets. There have already been discussions about bringing major tournaments to the Middle East. Rugby Asia President Qais Al-Dalai confirmed that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE are considering a joint bid to host the 2035 Rugby World Cup. Additionally, Qatar has been linked to hosting finals for emerging competitions like the Nations Championship. These developments indicate a growing appetite to expand rugby beyond its traditional strongholds in Europe, the Southern Hemisphere, and parts of Asia. Hearn's vision aligns with that trend, but takes it a step further by emphasizing entertainment and star-driven promotion. Controversy and criticism. Of course, the idea of hosting sporting events in Saudi Arabia is not without controversy. Similar to the backlash surrounding the 2022 FIFA World Cup, critics have raised concerns about human rights, the treatment of foreign workers, and issues affecting LGBT individuals in the region. Many argue that the influx of global sports events is part of a broader effort to improve the country's international image, a practice often referred to as sports washing. Hearn has addressed these criticisms directly, rather than denying the concept. he has acknowledged it, suggesting that sport is indeed being used as a tool for change. From his perspective, the increased presence of international events has contributed to visible social shifts within the country, particularly among younger generations. That he points to growing participation in sports, increased attendance at events, and changes in cultural norms as evidence that progress is being made. A changing landscape. Hearn's experiences in Saudi Arabia have shaped his views significantly. He describes a country that has evolved rapidly in recent years, with a vibrant and engaged youth population eager to embrace new forms of entertainment. According to him, sport has played a key role in driving that transformation. By hosting global events, the country has not only attracted international attention but also created opportunities for local communities to engage with sports in new ways. This, Hearn argues, is a positive development, one that should be encouraged rather than dismissed. The business case. Beyond the social and cultural aspects, there is a clear financial incentive. Saudi Arabia's investment in sport is substantial, and for athletes and organizations, the opportunities are significant. Hearn is unapologetic about the role of money in these decisions. If hosting events in the region leads to increased revenue for players and greater exposure for the sport, he sees it as a logical step. In the case of rugby, which has historically struggled to match the commercial power of sports like football and basketball, this could represent a major opportunity. The role of Matchroom Talent Agency. Hearn's new venture, Matchroom Talent Agency, is central to his plans. By signing athletes like Henry Pollock and Tom Aspinall, Hearn is building a roster of personalities who can transcend their respective sports. The goal is not just to manage careers, but to create global brands. Pollock's inclusion in this lineup signals Hearn's intent to apply the same model to rugby. Through strategic marketing, media exposure, and carefully curated opportunities, he aims to elevate Pollock to a level where he can headline events anywhere in the world. A hypothetical scenario. Hearn even outlined how such an event could come together. If he were to approach Turki al-Sheikh, chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, with a proposal for a major rugby event, he believes the response would be immediate. That confidence speaks volumes about both his relationship with key figures in the region and the level of interest in high-profile sporting spectacles. It also highlights the potential for rugby to tap into new markets, provided it can produce stars capable of attracting attention. The future of rugby promotion. Hearn's comments raise important questions about the future of rugby. Can the sport embrace a more entertainment-driven model? Is it ready to prioritize individual personalities alongside team success? And can players like Henry Pollock become global icons in the way that athletes in other sports have? These are not easy questions to answer. Rugby has long prided itself on tradition, teamwork, and a certain level of humility. The idea of building events around individual stars represents a significant shift in mindset. Yet, as the global sports landscape continues to evolve, such changes may become increasingly necessary. Conclusion. Eddie Hearn's vision for rugby in Saudi Arabia is ambitious, controversial, and undeniably thought-provoking. At its core is a belief that the future of sport lies in the intersection of performance, personality, and promotion. By focusing on athletes like Henry Pollock, Hearn is attempting to redefine how rugby is marketed and consumed. Whether this approach will succeed remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: if Hearn gets his way, the next chapter of rugby's global expansion could look very different from anything the sport has experienced before. And at the center of it all could be a young English player whose rise is only just beginning.